There's another story that just came to mind. When I was doing the Pro Tools seminars out in Pittsburgh, uh, we had a really good turnout, and I met all kind of people. And I'll do a video on the different people that I met. But I remember I met Barney Lee, who owned a studio called Aircraft Studios, and he was a great guy. And I think we did some seminars at his place too. And Barney knew a guy by the name of Marco Cardamone, I think his name is. And Marco owned I think it was a multimedia company. But one thing led to another, and I met Marco, and he was a guy who was very interested in the technology. So he bought a Pro Tools system. And this early on, when I needed to open up dealers, I eventually made him a dealer too. So he would let me use his studio to do seminars at. And I put pictures up so you could see. In the one big room there, we did seminars there. I remember this is when DigiDesign was pretty loose with their money, and they sent us a ton of T-shirts. And anybody that came to the seminar, they got a T-shirt. That was pretty cool. But there's not a really good picture of his control room, because he had a really interesting control room. You walked in, and the ceiling was maybe 20 feet tall, but it was narrow. It wasn't the full length of the room. And when it went all the way up, there were windows up on the very top. So you got this natural daylight coming in. But to kind of alleviate the sound bouncing around between this narrow corridor going straight up, they put these white, they were like white cotton flags with a wooden pole at the bottom. And they put them every, I guess, 5 feet or so, and they hung from the ceiling. So it let the light in, and it reflected off the white cotton, but it didn't really create an audio problem with the studio. So it was a very, very cool studio. His studio was in the old part of Pittsburgh. And here's the funny part of the story. I got to become pretty good friends with him and his wife, and he bought a pretty good amount of gear from us. But he asked me one day, he said, you want to go out and get lunch? And I said, sure. And I said, I just don't know the places around here. So, oh, no. He says, come on, I own a restaurant. And he took me to this restaurant, and it just seemed like a small restaurant. And the food was fantastic. It was Northern Italian cuisine. And it was a very fancy restaurant. And it was called Cafe Allegro. And I enjoyed the meal, and I thought it was great. And we just walked in and got a table right away. And because he was the owner, we got the table. And later on that day, I went back to Steubenville to talk to my partner, Kurt Lehman. And I mentioned that we went out to lunch at this place, Cafe Allegro. And he was like, wait, did you say Cafe Allegro? I said, yeah, it's this restaurant on the old part of Pittsburgh. He says, oh my God. He says, George, do you know anything about that restaurant? I go, no, the food was really good. He says, it takes about 6 months to get a seating at that restaurant. He said, how'd you get in there? I said, Marco owns the place. He said, oh, geez. He says, it just like blew his mind that I got in there so easily and had a meal. And he's been waiting, because I know Kurt was trying to get into that place. So I introduced him to Marco, and Marco took care of him. But that was the funny part of the story. So I posted some pictures so you can see, and I posted a picture of Cafe Allegro. Unfortunately, it went out of business in 2008. It was open for 22 years, and it was voted best restaurant in Pittsburgh. So it was really highly regarded. So there you go.